Well, hello, Eastlake. It's Kristen and Peter here, and the lovely Michelle Meeks.
Woohoo!
Yay! We are so happy to have you here, and thrilled that you said yes to talking with us about this. And I think I just want to start. We're just going to spend a lot of time, I think, trying to figure out what you have learned and what happened to you during your time at Eastlake. Hopefully to honor you and to say thank you to you.
Yeah.
Oh crap, already.
So early. It's amazing.
Oh man.
You have to tell everybody about your how you prepared though. You came prepared for today with your
I
snot
did come
rags.
prepared with my snot rag. These are former burp rags from Babyland that I kept, and my kids use them now as snot rags for when they're sick, so they can sleep with something to blow their nose. And I brought one to be with me today.
You're very prepared. You know yourself very well.
I do know myself very well. But we're just so thankful you said yes. And I guess I want to start by asking you, when we reached out and said, hey, as part of, because we did reach out to you to tell you that we're going to wrap this up. But when we reached out and said, would you take some time to share with us some of your thoughts? What was like your reaction to that?
Well, when you asked, I felt very honored. And then like this big wave of like, how could I possibly encapsulate my experience in a short amount of time? And what am I going to talk about? I don't mess it up. But yeah, just a lot of gratitude for being asked. So thank you both so much.
Yeah. I'm really glad that we get to speak with you individually. We obviously love your husband. He's a pretty good guy, Ryan. We're gonna be chatting with him too. But I'm sure the experiences of these like were different and are different, right? So I'm very excited to hear one, obviously to hear from you, but also just to communicate, like, just hopefully you hear this as like kind of an excuse to say thank you and that we really appreciate you and love you. Um, like you and Ryan starting Eastlake has been transformational in our lives. And we thought like if we're gonna wrap up Eastlake well, there were two people that we wanted to feel like we wrapped it up perfectly, and those were Ryan and Michelle. And then we'll try to like make as many people as we can happy. But if there's anybody that we want to feel like honored and appreciated and that we really love them and are like just deeply grateful for their impact in our life, it's you and it's Ryan. And so thank you for being willing to share and taking your time. But also I think there's a reason why we didn't want to just have you both on to do a conversation together, because we want to hear from you specifically. So
well, I really appreciate that so much. I'll have my little tissues here ready to go. Yeah, I think we did. I mean, we had very parallel experiences, but they were, yes, very different. And, especially, well, the whole time they were very different because he just had so much pressure from the get-go. Like, he just felt like it was all on his shoulders. And thankfully, we had so many great friends and family who were helping out at the beginning. But I definitely felt like I was a support role and that the pressure was definitely on Ryan. And so,
yeah,
my like natural giftings are to be very supportive and to the detriment of myself.
sure.
So, but I like loved it. It was so much fun. Like, yes, extremely hard and physically taxing for sure, because a weekend was insane. We'd have the U-Haul truck parked on our front lawn. I mean, you guys have heard this a million times, but we'd take it to the junior high, unpack it with a team of volunteers. He would start warming up the band and leading worship. I would be setting up all the children's and meeting the children's volunteers and running that during the service. Then he'd preach, and then we'd tear it all down, come back to our house. And I had like at 5 a.m, put on like a pot roast, and then we'd have everybody over for lunch and like hang out. And he would ultimately get a splitting headache like around 2 p.m. And like,
Yeah, I can't imagine why.
yeah, right.
His body just screaming at him. What are
Just
we doing?
deteriorating. But we were 25 and 26, so it was a lot easier to do.
Sure.
When you're just
That was on my list
young.
though. I was curious how old you were when you actually were doing all the like the '05 years. Like you were early 20s, right?
Yeah.
Mid 20s.
Yeah. So, yeah, when we had our first official launch, that was in the beginning of 2005. And so we were 25 and a half and 26 and a half.
And Riley and Jager were 4 and 2. What were they?
Jager, when we did the first official launch, Jager had just turned 2 and Riley was 5. And
What a perfect time to plant a church. Those are the easy years of parenting.
easy years. Oh my gosh. Tom, I know you're watching this. I need to find like the old videos, like the very first Christmas we did like a little montage, and Jager is like almost 2 and he has these chapped cheeks from the weather. He's like, Merry Christmas. And I'm like, oh, I want that so bad. It's probably just gone. But yeah, it was a very intense time to basically have a third kid, is kind of how we pictured it. Like it was so all encompassing. And yeah, like one of my long list of thank yous is to my parents for really stepping in to help raise Riley and Jager during that time, because I just was so wrapped up in the children's ministry and trying to I thought I had to like lead a women's ministry too. It's like all these things
with your free time. You should
with
fit
my
that
free
in.
time. Yeah. So yeah, they definitely had a very very fun, but also very different experience of being toddlers and preschool age kids. Just all of a sudden their parents are so busy all the time. And but then, also they had a ton of love poured on them for sure on the weekends. Everyone was so kind to them.
When the initial idea of like, hey, Ryan says he wants to plant a church, right? Like I've bounced ideas off my wife, Brittany, and sometimes those ideas are like, oh, great idea. And other times it's like, well, like there's some feedback. Like, were you at the time, obviously just so young and early in your relationship too, like at the time, were you like equally gung ho, or were you more like, I just want to support Ryan and whatever he's wanting to chase down, and this is how I could be best supportive? I'm curious if you ever had, like, if you felt like it was like you both chose to do that, or if it felt more like you're supporting him with this kind of decision to plant.
It was always we, for sure. Yeah, like when originally the plan, because we were in San Diego and a pastor down there was going to come up to the Northwest on the east side of Seattle and take over an existing church. And Ryan was going to he's like, I want to go back and be up there with my family and friends up there. I'd love to be a part of creating a church where my friends would want to go. I'll be your worship pastor, because he had been the worship pastor at the church in San Diego, EastLake, where his dad had been the pastor there. So that was like exciting. And then that deal fell through. That church no longer wanted our friend to come up there. But we were already like so excited. So we were like, let's do this. And from the get-go, I knew that it was going to be us doing it together. So I never felt like this was Ryan's thing. I always felt like it was my thing too. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's funny to think like how early years were worship Ryan, because I mean, I joined obviously the party a number of years after EastLake had started, but really 6 years in, and I only knew Ryan as like head honcho, leader of the church, right? So it's fascinating to remember the earlier years.
Yeah, he's got a good voice. He doesn't
musically talented dude.
He is a very talented guy.
I think of him every time I hear "Every Rose Has Its Thorn." Sometimes I text him.
One of his classic karaoke
Yep,
tunes.
one of his
For
faves.
sure. For sure. Yeah, I definitely knew that I would not be on the worship team or speaking. So I figured there would be some sort of supportive role, but that we would be doing it together for sure.
When you look back at Eastlake, does it feel like there were like multiple chapters in a book? Does it just feel like historical fiction to you? Like when you, now that you're like removed a little bit, um, when we ask you to look back, what does it feel like? Like a dream, like a nightmare, like a book you read? Like what does it feel like?
Oh man, it definitely feels like there has been so many iterations of Eastlake. And so chapters for sure, in the book of Eastlake, I definitely felt like there was distinct chapters of time and styles. Um, but yeah, it feels like a dream. Definitely not a nightmare. Just such a dream. I mean, there were really a beautiful, beautiful story, and in every beautiful story, there are challenging times where you don't know what's going to happen. And we had lots of those for sure throughout, but it was so beautiful. And like, one of the questions you asked, like, when you think about East, like what kind of feelings come up? And so much nostalgia and just like warm fuzzies to think about all the different chapters and faces just come at me when I think of the different years as they go by. And I think the theme that really ties it together is that there was so much laughter all the time, and that like really leveled the playing field, I think, for everyone. Is like it didn't matter if someone was wearing like in an expensive suit or in like the raggediest outfit. Like we could all like come together over like laughing at the absurdity of life and saying we all want to be loved and accepted. Like that felt like a really beautiful theme throughout the book of Eastlake for me. But tons of gratitude. Like that was another big theme. Like as I think about Eastlake, I'm just so grateful for it. I'm so grateful for how it shaped me, how I had this, in some ways, this compression chamber for growth that was hard, but because I was somewhat on like a stage, or at least people would like knew that I was Ryan's wife, and so they would like, how is she handling this?
Yeah.
But how is she not handling this?
Sure.
But I'm just so grateful for it because it caused me to be who I am now, and I'm really happy. I'm really happy with who I am right now, and excited to see where I'm going to continue to go. And I think Eastlake, because it was such a decisive time in my life, I can see the ups and downs of growth within that like 15-year period for me, and go, okay, you're gonna get through it. You got through these hard things, and you still had joy and laughter, even though you're going through hard pain there. You're gonna get through it, and it's gonna, whatever comes at you in life, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna be all right because you have such this amazing amount of history, seeing how resilient people are. I got to see that over and over and over again at Eastlake with so many beautiful people and incredible stories. And to be able to witness that, I'm just incredibly grateful. Incredibly grateful. Yeah. It is a wild ride.
It has been a while, right? I'm curious. We could go like so many different directions to this conversation, Kristen, because I'm like, okay, compression chamber for growth. Like, what are some of the things that you took away? But I'm also like, I don't necessarily want to go there yet because I want to like make sure that we like, what direction do you want to go?
Well, I want to ask about the chapters just off the top of your head. I would love to see you just list some of the chapter titles that you remember, like starting with the 9, like that was a thing for so long. But like, can you rattle off some chapter titles or themes that come to mind when you think about 15 years?
yeah, they might not be in chronological order, but
Yeah, that's okay.
yeah, definitely the 9 and the practice months leading up to when we launched. Um, for me, big time migraines is a chapter. I like just said I said yes to everything, and it destroyed me, and I would like end up in the emergency room with migraines. The migraines is one for me. The junior high, Room for Everyone campaign, the red chair, drinks for drinks, the staff a small staff, a growing staff, campuses, trying to get pregnant, having Dodge and Ace, the beginning of like the debate that started the deconstruction, or at least my understanding of that time frame. I would call that like ancient future faith.
I made an ancient future faith joke the other day with one of my EastLake buddies. It was so great.
Ancient future faith would be like 3 chapters.
It's a long chapter.
19 weeks long or something like that.
Yeah.
52 week long sermon series.
And then of course inclusion. Absolutely. And then that beautiful series that followed inclusion, I'm forgetting the name of it, where we had all the guest speakers come in. That was such a beautiful, that whole spring was so beautiful.
Together in
this. Thank you. Yeah. And then cancer. And then I would say spiritual community would probably be the last one. Maybe just felt like that was where I felt like I landed and was able to feel like, okay, I've got this bow wrapped up on, the healing from everything that led up to Ryan's cancer treatment. And that was just such a profound time of healing for our family. So that we're still feeling today. Absolutely. Still going on. Good. Yeah. Crazy to believe that that's been 6 years that he's been clear. Incredible. Yeah. So those are my chapters.
Yeah. Those are good. That was impressive.
Yeah.
That covered, I feel like.
From memory.
Yeah.
I wonder if you'd have called me on my chapters, what would I have been able to come up with? I'd have been like, I gotta go to my notes.
It would have been like big hair Peter.
Oh, the good old days.
The Flatiron Peter.
Campuses, inclusion.
Gotta have.
Launching campuses and shutting them down. I was part of both of those chapters.
Oh, God.
Multi-site, single site.
Hey, expansion and contraction. It's all part of growth.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I know it's hard to like cut it down, but like if we were to say like 1 or 2 or 3 of just like clear favorite memories, like these things that pop up and are clear in your mind of like, that was the best. What comes to mind?
Oh man. Well, it would kind of be like in those different stages, each chapter would have one. But definitely like the days where we would set up, tear down, everyone come over afterward, and I serve them lunch. The super service weekends at the Willows office. The windstorm that blew out power and everyone we had service at the Willows office. There was those services where we donate shoes and jackets. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yes. Everyone's like, damn it. They're my favorite.
Why did I wear my nice shoes?
But this is so embarrassing.
I wore my like favorite flip-flops that day that were like worn down where my toe was like almost through the bottom. And I felt guilty about leaving those because they were terrible. But then I couldn't walk out wearing shoes or I would feel like a
Shameful.
jerk that didn't participate. And I think I cried on the way home because I was like, I just turned in the most awful pair of shoes I could have
Oh
given.
my God. That's amazing. Well, the jacket one, I think, was like in January and it was freezing cold, but everyone left their jackets. And that following April, I was about ready to have Dodge. It was Easter weekend. And I was like trying to lay low. So I was just like chilling in the back area, trying not to go into labor. And I was freezing cold. None of my jackets fit me. And I remember someone was like, this jacket's been in the lost and found forever. Why don't you wear it? And so I put it on and it like fit me perfect, about ready to have my baby. And then we go over to my brother's house for Easter dinner. And he's invited a bunch of people on his volunteer team from church to come over. And one of the guys goes, that's my jacket. I donated that in January. And I'm like, oh my God, it looks like I just rob people.
But donations just go to staff here. That's how we run.
Like, so humiliated. I didn't know. I thought it was lost.
Oh, that's amazing.
I've never heard
embarrassing
that
one.
story.
Yeah, that was in 2009. But then like anytime there was any sort of video that Ryan and Jeremy did, and there was like watching the behind the scenes or watching them film it and them busting up laughing, and there was just laughter all the time. The Seahawks videos.
Oh gosh.
Anytime you see Jake Rutenbar on rollerblades, it is a good day.
Yeah.
So there was
100%.
lots of really great days with that. Just laughing. I mean, yeah. I loved anytime we get to hang out with the staff when I would crash staff meetings. I loved that so much because everyone was just so kind and so cool, such hard workers. And like nobody took themselves too seriously. Otherwise, you would never survive on the staff. So it was always so fun to be around the staff.
Those are wonderful memories.
Yeah.
And you got a jacket out of the deal that you probably still wear to this day, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. To this day. I'm sorry, Scott. Oh man, other memories would be like in general, seeing our kids like Jager got to different youth workers and children's volunteers would like take him under his wing and same with Riley, like she got treated so kindly and during the week in the Montevilla space, like I would take Dodge and Ace and we would help clean the children's rooms, and that whole team of people was so sweet. So yeah, just like seeing my kids be loved in a really sweet way by people that I trusted their intentions was really, really great. Really great.
I remember you drinking castor oil in the kitchen for Ace.
Totally. Yep.
Remember
yep.
that?
Yeah, that was the evening of September 11th. Because I didn't want him to be born on September. And he came the next morning, 4 a.m. Oh, yeah. So many crazy.
I'm so thankful to hear that, like, when you think back, it's just gratitude. And I can see it in you and I can hear it in you that that's true. I know there were so many hard times also, ups and downs, like you said. And I'm curious about kind of the results of those hard times. Not that we need to like rehash the things that were difficult, but I guess I'm curious on like hard lessons learned and those lessons that you kind of still carry with you now.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you're right, and I have kind of adopted this little phrase that we are grateful for all of our lessons. And we say that because it's usually about the lessons that were hard won and painful to go through. But like then on the other side, we're so grateful for them. And that's definitely, there's tons of that all over Eastlake. But I think um, one of the big ones was originally from Doug Paget, and I'm going to muddle this up, but the gist of it is that if you were to know everyone's like full story, you couldn't help but love them with your whole heart. And I think that seeing that in people has been really helpful, especially with forgiveness and giving the benefit of the doubt, just knowing that like people are doing their best with whatever it is that they have. And that's me too. Like I am not I have needed lots and lots of forgiveness and have had to ask forgiveness over and over and over again because I was doing the best with what I had and I didn't know what I didn't know. And so extending that to other people, I think has been, yeah, it was painful, but so good. So I'm definitely grateful for that lesson, learning that like people are, you know, generally people are really, really good and want to do the best. And so, giving them that benefit of the doubt is just a better way to live,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So,
I love that lesson. I love that quote from Doug.
yeah.
It feels so like you just said, it can be easy. I don't know what that natural human inclination is to like feel like when somebody wrongs you, that it was my tendency, at least my children's tendency, I'm having to teach them is like it was on purpose. They did this to harm me because they are thinking about me and they want me to fail or to struggle. But maybe it's age, but certainly through a lot of the lessons that he's like too, I'm reminded that a lot of times people aren't thinking about you at all. They're thinking about themselves. And like you said, are given like they're just navigating their life in the way that they're assuming will work out the best. And sometimes there's ripple effects that impact us in a negative way. And I don't know, I've certainly had experiences too that make me doubt that everybody is super good. But I wasn't pushing back on you though. I'm more saying, but I think that the only productive way to live in a way that has motivating and like trying to like actually help the world be more beautiful is to assume that for the most part humans are trying their best and are pretty good. And like I don't know, it's just a better way to live life. It can be so depressing and down to assume that everyone's out to get you. Like it's just a way too exhausting way to live. So I appreciate what you're saying.
Totally. And it feels like, you know, you'll get what you want to get. So
Yeah.
if
Yes.
you think that people are out to get you, you're going to experience it that way
Yeah.
for sure.
For sure. What
Yeah.
you look for, you will find.
Yeah, totally. And I think another one lesson from Eastlake is to like enjoy the moment and the people like in your space right there. Cause like there were so many times at Eastlake where people would tell us, or it was just the general vibe was like, this is going to be forever. It's always going to feel this
Yeah.
way, just like up and to the right,
Forever.
up
That
and to
I certainly experienced that belief for a while.
yeah, me too. And Ryan would say, oh, you think we've grown fast. Watch how
Watch
we
how
crumble.
fast. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
shut
He's a
up,
prophet.
but
He was a
He's a
prophet.
prophet.
in some ways, guys, that is hard to live with. Yeah, in some ways, he's very intuitive that way. But like, so just enjoying this moment and like from like the wilderness withins and stuff, like learning about the west side of the psyche, about how it's like the romantic side, it's the sunset, and what makes the sunset so beautiful is like it's not lasting, like this day is done, it's gone. And like having that fresh in your mind, that perspective of like this is the day that we have and everything will pass is hard, but it brings that like real specialness to the moment. And I think that was definitely something that was ingrained in us at Eastlake and just all of our experiences. Like enjoy it because you don't know how long it's gonna last.
do you still have the art that says we only have these people in this moment in this love, or this moment, these people
Uh,
in this love? Do you still have that one?
no, that
You might have
we've
moved on
had
from it, but
on
that was significant.
sales.
I remember that one as certainly a
Yeah.
value you tried to uphold in your home. And
Yes, for sure. And I think that was from the message after Sandy Hook.
hmm.
And, yeah. And yeah, that's a beautiful, beautiful phrase. But I mean, every time we do a move,
I was gonna say Ryan and Michelle,
yard sale.
they get rid of
Oh,
everything.
I would have been shocked if they had it. I was more just remembering it based on the value of being in
Yeah,
the moment, right? Like trying to just like remind yourself. It's hard to, you know.
totally. It is. It is. That was a beautiful, beautiful gift that somebody gave us from that quote. But yeah, it's a good thing that we still have our children
Yeah,
because
because
we try to get rid of everything.
I know that about you. You
It is
and
surprising that you can be nostalgic about EastLake though, because it feels like nostalgia isn't a primary thing, at least with things. Maybe with experiences and memories though, you're still nostalgic. Maybe it's just
For,
not stuff.
it's just not stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like those lessons. Those are good. Um,
Thanks.
I have, I mean, like, maybe it's similar to lessons, but I'm kind of just curious, like when you, because obviously being part of why I was wanting to pick your brain and hear from you is being a little bit removed from Eastlake in some ways. I'm assuming that like that's probably helped bring some perspective about like because you can see it differently. Because like you just said a minute ago, like wow, what a ride, right? Like, but you only really notice how crazy of a ride it is until like 10 minutes after you get off the ride, you know, at the theme park. Like in the middle of it, you're just kind of like, oh, right. So I'm kind of curious as you look back on the East Lake ride, if there's things that you still would say, like that East Lake taught you that you still live out now, right? Because I think
Mhm.
my hunch is that like some of the early beliefs and the early a lot of the Christianity stuff you probably wouldn't say is like still driving how you make decisions or how you live,
Right.
but they're probably values or things that you felt like East Lake developed in you. Even going back to the idea of like a supercharged growth chamber, I'm kind of curious what that growth like created or molded into you, and what things now that you've been a couple years out of East Lake, you're like, yeah, that's still there. I have moments regularly where I, despite not having a lot of the beliefs that I started at East Lake in 2011 with, I'm like, ooh, that still fits. That still fit. Like where I'm at today, a lot of that stuff still kind of translates. So I was just kind of curious
Mhm.
which ones come up for you when I ask about what parts of East Lake, like what things did East Lake teach you that you still hold on to now?
For sure. There's definitely a lot. Um, I think like as I did deconstruction, there was a lot. There was like always whenever I would deconstruct some sort of a belief, there was a phase where I had to totally push off of it. And then with time, those have slowly come back in. And that like the term transcend and include has been, I'm like, oh, I can actually like experience that I'm doing that in some ways. Um, I can see, for sure with like the whole idea of death, burial, and resurrection, how being able to see that that is a theme in growth in life, and that's something that is just like a a theme in nature that is
Mhm.
essential for life to continue. And so that's definitely been one. But I think like a value of Eastlake um, would be like the room for everyone, or not room for everyone. That's great too. But the church for the rest of us, like
Mm.
that mentality of like everyone is welcome here, and everyone, is going to be valued and listened to. That I feel
Mm.
like is something that I hopefully haven't ever shaken off. I'm sure that there is a lot of times when I don't act out of that, but I want to live that way, that I can be open arms and ready to show somebody love and acceptance, regardless of, wherever they're coming from. Um, and even if they don't see things the way I do, spiritually, politically, whatever, that I can still show them value as a person, as a human. That's a big one, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'd assume too, as I'm even hearing you share that, right? If you're wanting to embody the value of everyone's included, everyone has value, even if I don't personally align, right? In some ways, transcending beliefs from, from Christianity. I know for me, like as I kind of moved on from some of those beliefs, that actually helped me live that out more, right? Because I no longer needed you to be Christian in order to, right? Because there's always this end game of I want to accept you, and I'll accept you as like with this, like, come on, let's move
Yeah.
towards Christianity, and then I'll belong before you believe, that mentality. And I think
Yeah.
it's just interesting to recognize that basically church for the rest of us started to supersede Christianity at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You don't even need to be Christian to be accepted here, right? Just like
Right.
be yourself, do no
Yeah.
harm.
Harm. Yeah. Being that beneficial presence in the world too. Like, that meant something very different to me in early 2000s. That was like how many, notches on the spiritual headboard were like, how many people can you like get to come to EastLake and accept Jesus and all that? There was like this spiritual pride there. And now it's like, it can be so much more like, showing love to, your child's friend who is super irritating, or whatever. It's just so much more expansive, and seeing that can have just as big of an impact, if not more, than getting somebody to come to a service on Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think too, one of the, like, circling kind of back to one of the hard lessons was, I felt like through some of the challenging lessons that we learned, I felt myself like get this kind of like build a wall of protection around my heart whenever, certain times I just feel it like pop up. And the hard lesson has been learning how to stay in the tension of like being wise with who I share my energy with, and also wanting to like love wastefully. So like getting that tension of being like wise with who I engage with, but then also like foolish in love. So like that has been really hard, because it's been a learning and having to like trust people, and then trust myself with me being able to know who can be allowed in that circle. And then everyone who isn't, it's like love wastefully. That's been a hard one for sure. But that was definitely, I had lots of like tangible practice rounds through EastLake by finding out like, oh, okay, this is safe. This person is safe. Maybe not this one yet. They may be trying their best, but it's not quite yet there. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a powerful lesson, I feel like.
Oh, it's not done by any means, but yeah, it started there. It started at EastLake for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I do remember walking in to service. I think it was early 2016. And I noticed, it was like when I noticed, oh, I have been protecting myself when I walk in here for the last like year and a half. And I could like start to bring it down. So it definitely, through lots of these hard lessons, there's been lots more learning about body awareness and how I will protect and like physically try to armor myself in ways. So that's been really beautiful, because then I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that I've been like operating out of this stress response. I need to like relax my body, get over into a more relaxed state. So many good lessons. So many good lessons. We're grateful for all of our lessons. We're so grateful.
I can't wait to be grateful for some of those lessons.
You will.
I remember during one of the sessions of letting stuff go, I was pregnant. don't know which kid. And Ryan was like, you need to leave and you need to do breathing on the way home. And I want you to call me when you get home and we'll do breathing together on the phone. He was very concerned for my stress response during that time and the effect it was having on my body. And I was very unaware of what I was feeling at the time. I appreciate you guys taking the lead in that area for all of us.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's pretty amazing how long we can go without being aware of how stressed out we are. It's like we just get used to this normal.
The baseline is higher.
The baseline is, and it's crazy baseline, we're just now I learned we deteriorate our bodies when we're in that state for a chronic amount of time. But yeah, then once you do like make that switch, it's so great to have those little tools in your back pocket of how to switch out of it for sure. I'm so glad he said that to you, especially when you were pregnant. Way to go, babe. So proud of him so many times, so many ways.
The other time I wasn't pregnant, I just threw up everywhere. I was so stressed out. Do you remember that, Peter?
Yeah.
I just had this image of you just like projectile vomiting across like a meeting, like just taking out everybody in the meeting. That'd have been amazing.
No, that probably would have made the meeting better though.
Definitely memorable.
Safe to say I had some body reactions to what was going on.
That's your version of the migraine, KB.
Yeah, projectile vomiting. Okay.
I do think though, going back to just like you said, body awareness, like so much I think too, like EastLake tried to teach awareness in general, right? And I think being in that community around people, listening to speakers who notice things, whether it's noticing why do I believe this? Do I believe this anymore? Is it okay to believe something different? Or noticing your stress levels, noticing right how your body feels. I think a lot of what EastLake, I guess there's just a theme, it feels like, of EastLake of trying to teach awareness in a lot of different buckets and arenas. So
sure,
I'm
like
thankful
thinking
for that.
about like all the different perspectives that were brought in. It's like even if we were talking about this one centralized theme of, how to live, in the example of Jesus, like there were so many perspectives brought in. And I think that's beautiful. And that would be another one that I would hope to be taking away from my time at EastLake is that enriches everything. If you can be confident enough to let your views be seen from different perspectives, because it's scary. It can be scary. So yeah, super thankful.
I think I would have ever been able to do that if it weren't for you and Ryan showing us how.
Yeah.
Oh, that's definitely Ryan. He's taught me how to do that because I was like, nope, there's one way, it's my way. That one's still,
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I have to beat that one down every once in a while, but I'm very thankful for that perspective. And then just how much it's enriched my life to see things from different people's points of view and different cultures, perspectives. And yeah, it's really good. I'm really, really proud of that one.
This question might be sort of similar, so you can just say, I feel like I've already answered that. But I'm curious about when you think of the word like spirituality, like how does your kind of approach to spirituality now reflect kind of your EastLake tenure or your time there?
Yes, there's definitely some similarities, with what we just talked about. But I would say right now, kind of like my spiritual practice has definitely involved regular high doses of psychedelics. And that has really helped me go from like this big picture inward to see how it's affecting me and how my personal experience of spirituality is. And when I first started doing that, kind of following that as my practice, I had this kind of framework that it had to be really challenging and hard and painful to have growth. And that is definitely like kind of where my thinking was when we started EastLake, that the life of a Christ follower was going to be painful, that it was going to be hard and challenging. And that, that there is that aspect of life and spiritual development for sure. But I think that, again, that like thread of fun and joy that is woven all throughout Eastlake, that is something that I've like really over the last 2 years brought into my spiritual practice, that like growth can also be ease filled and joyful, and that the biggest like lever in that, whether it is joy filled or difficult, is my resistance or lack of resistance. Like if I can just be like, okay, this is what is, I'm gonna breathe and take this next step and keep going one day at a time, then it's a whole lot more enjoyable as I'm growing. But like I had the idea when I first started doing any kind of psychedelics, I needed to go hard and I needed to have like really high dose. And now I'm like, no, I can go slow, and there can be joy in growing. And I think as I reflect back that is definitely something that I learned at East. Like we had a ton of fun doing really hard things. We had a lot of fun doing it.
We did. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I also remember a lot of intense, high energy, like high bar expectations at EastLake. So I think there's some like I think part of even going through that experience of like EastLake probably makes you have some reflections of like what you probably enjoyed the most, or like the positive memories and like the joy and the gratitude versus like the stress and the pain of EastLake, right? So I don't know. I was just thinking like EastLake in some ways has taught you probably which parts of that are valuable too. I was just thinking about like the approach of EastLake in general was like a whirlwind, crazy like sprint often. And I think it's not too surprising that you're pushing a little, or you have some resistance to that too in this next chapter, maybe a little bit more pacing ourselves.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was, you guys probably remember this, but it was like during the hologram time, that could be a chapter, hologram.
The LARPing.
LARPing. Oh my God. But like there were times when I would just be like, oh my gosh, Ryan, like it'd be probably after a Saturday night service and it'd be like 10 p.m. and he'd be like rearranging the chairs to get it just perfect for the Sunday morning. And I'm like, everyone needs to just go to bed. Like, what are you doing fucking with the chairs? Sorry if you can't say that on like
you can say it. We're good.
We all need to go to bed. Our kids need to go to bed. Get out. I would get
You're
so
right.
irritated with the like, yeah, because he can just get so hyper focused on stuff. But yeah, that was definitely a high value. I mean, staff worked hard and didn't do a lot of like piddly things. It was like, no, this is like really important stuff. Like if people had ideas, it was like, great, you're gonna lead that. You're now the new volunteer lead. That great idea you just had. Love that. But the staff worked extremely hard. And I think that was also one of the key things, was like, it was so intentional who was on staff. There had to be a great chemistry between them. And I think that is also another thing that I want to hold on to, is like who we pick to be around us, and has such a huge impact on our lives. And so like that staff, yeah, they worked really hard, but it was also like really fun to be around each other. It was like, of course, I'm sure people got irritated with each other, but like for the most part, it was a really great blend of people together. And so they were working all hard together, but it was like fucking doing this together. And like the purpose was really, everyone was like on board with the vision. And that was just so beautiful to see. But gosh, yeah, so many hard times. And I tend to be more of like, I'm going to look at the positive side of things. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of really hard times and difficult, gut-wrenching decisions that are excruciating to think back on. For sure. It was all there. Those damn chairs.
Always the chairs.
Freaking chairs.
I feel that way about tablecloths.
Damn.
I think I still have the EastLake
Mm.
tablecloths because Heather and I were the only ones that cared how they were folded. Um,
Oh my God, I love it.
as you've thought about this conversation, are there things that we haven't asked you about when you were like, oh, this stands out, or I want to say this, or this is one of the clear things that I think back on? Is there anything else that you haven't said?
Oh man, I feel like we've covered a good, everything that I can think of other than um, just specifically saying thank you again. Like this was such a beautiful chapter in my life, and I know for so many people's lives. And it was never just one person. It was always bigger and bigger circles of people coming together to make it happen and sacrificing time and energy and resources. Um, of course, I specifically think of Ryan and Riley and Jager right away that I would want to say thank you to. And of course, Diogenes too later on. But like parents and brother Eric and Sarah and but like the staff, like, yeah. And you too, Kristen and Peter, just the way you have so carefully held this really beautiful, beautiful thing, this gift, and so respectfully carried it out. I'm just extremely grateful to you too. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I have some things I want to say. Peter, do you have things you want to say?
I do. Let's end with yours though. I'll just share mine briefly. I just wanted to communicate my own gratitude to you, Michelle. When I joined the team in 2011, I had this fun hairdo and I had no kids. Brittany and I were married for a handful of years and I was just starting, I think, to become an adult when it comes to like how to think about what I believe. And Eastlake was this fun, cool career opportunity for me at the time. It was an opportunity to get
Climb that ladder.
out of youth ministry, climb the church ladder, and climb for a while for sure. But when I look back on this chapter, I have so much gratitude as well. When I think about like I'm a completely different human than I was in 2011 in terms of how I see the world. My marriage is different. How Brittany and I talk to each other, interact with each other. We have 4 kids now. And I'm in a different career, a different world. I'm not in the church world anymore. Um, and I just wanted to say thank you to you and to Ryan for starting Eastlake. Like I can't fathom what I would be up to if you hadn't have started it. Like it's a really interesting kind of sliding doors moment to think like, what would I be in life? What would I believe? What beliefs would I be stuck with or questioning without a community to even navigate that with? So the fact that you like went through all that hard work and pain to start Eastlake, and obviously some joy too. But like the migraine phase and the setting up and tearing down and all those things that you guys committed in terms of work has had a profound impact on our life. And I'm just so eternally grateful that I got to join the Eastlake, ride the Eastlake bus for as long as it was running. And I think it like you and Ryan started it. So thank you for that. Hopefully you know that there's at least I know there's many more than just me, but I'm a long list of humans that were positively impacted by it. And so I just have so much gratitude for you. Thanks for your courage to start it. It's not easy to start a church, and then you guys worked your ass off for a couple decades to keep it going, and I got to reap the benefits of that. Like the safe place to process beliefs. You and Ryan always welcomed us to in your home, and like being a staff member felt like family. And that was like a kind of a newer thing for me too, just to experience like the close knit type of community that you guys created like very early on. Just like whenever we were in your home, like you give us a big old hug and I'm like, okay, like we're hugging and just but like because of how much you
Don't give
and
me
Ryan
that
just like
sidearm
yeah,
bullshit, Peter.
exactly. Do not be. I don't want a pastoral hug here. Come on, treat me like a human. Nobody thinks anything weird. Just be a normal guy here. But like learning that under your and Ryan's leadership, is just transformational. So we love you.
Thanks, Peter. I love you and Brittany so much. 4 kids, man. Whew.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah,
believe you led a church while you're doing this. You're crazy.
you were an example to them that they apparently wanted to follow.
Yeah, exactly. And we followed you right out of the church. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. When I just keep thinking about what you said earlier, like that you were known as Ryan's wife and that everybody knew you that way. I'm just so thankful that I got to know you as Michelle, because I feel like maybe not everyone got that chance, and I'm so grateful that I did. I always felt like whenever you came to things, it was always like, okay, like when you would come to staff meetings, when you would walk in on a Sunday. I remember when we were doing it together in this thing, and I sat in the back with you, and you crushed like 8 bottles of water because you were like, like, I need to hydrate. It's very kind of a stressful time, and I just sat next to you in the very back. But I feel like you had like a mothering approach to EastLake that was needed. Like we kind of had the crazy dad, and we needed the mom. Like we needed you, and it always felt better when you were around. And Ryan's not crazy, but you know what I mean, of like you need the yin and the yang, and I feel like you provided that for staff, for your kids, for 5,000 people at a time. And in all of those ways, I feel like you had a really like settled, even if you didn't feel settled on the inside, your presence felt settling, and I'm just so thankful for that. I have 2 memories that I wanted to share. The first one was in January 2015 when Ryan did that message of inclusion, and it was a Sunday. I don't know what Sunday it was in January, but we had been talking about it for months, and then it happened. And Andy and I were married, but we had no kids, and we went home afterwards, and because it was such a big day, and we were sitting there, and we were like, I wonder what Ryan and Michelle are doing right now. Like, there's probably like lots of people over there. And I reached out, and you were like, no, we're just here. So I don't know if you remember this, but Andy and I drove over to your house that night, and Andy sat with Ryan, and I went in the van with you, and you were driving Riley and her friends around. Do you remember? And we were just kind of stunned about what had just happened. And you put on Taylor Swift's song Out of the Woods. And you were like, I just keep playing this because I know someday we will feel like we are out of the woods, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. So every time I hear that song, I think of you. And then a couple of months ago, I sent this to you, and I wanted to read it. There was this poem I found that Andrea Gibson wrote, and I'll just read it. She said, Jenny says when people ask if she's out of the woods, she tells them she'll never be out of the woods. Says there's something lovely about the woods. I know how to build a survival shelter. From fallen tree branches, packed mud, and pulled moss, I could survive forever. On death alone. Wasn't it death that taught me to stop measuring my lifespan by length, but by width? Do you know how many beautiful things can be seen in a single second? And then I don't have the rest of it, but And my text to you, and I'm just saying this to anyone who's listening, was that like I would go to the woods anytime with you guys. And it wasn't like fun at the time, but when I look back on it, I'm like, it was one of the most like intense but beautiful times I've ever experienced. And I would have never done it had you guys not gone first. And so great. I'm so grateful for time in the woods, and I would go back in a heartbeat if the two of you were there also. So that's one of my memories. The other one, they're all from really shitty times. Sorry.
The best memories are always from that, right?
But there was another shitty time that one that we went through.
217.
And I was kind of trying to explain this to Peter the other day. At that time, I was on the leadership team, and I don't know how many of us there were, but I was the only girl. And there were parts of that were really hard. There was like debrief sessions that I, wasn't a part of because it took place over camping or whatever. And that ended up being, I think, really good for EastLake. But there were times when I felt like I felt kind of alone in that. But in those feelings, I always knew I had you and that I could reach out to you. And I remember during one of these particular times, I was walking through the grocery store and you called me back, and I was like standing in the middle of the grocery store just crying. Right? I had to leave my cart and like walk out. But I just want to say thank you for being that person for me who like understood everything that was going on and could be a sounding board and someone that could feel it with me in a way that I think I just needed to remain sane dealing with all of it. So thanks for being that person for me and letting me cry in the grocery store.
Anytime. I always want to be that for you.
Yeah, I just think, overall, we wanted the chance to tell you how thankful we are for you personally and all that you did to make this place happen. It's been quite the ride.
Well, thank you so much, both of you. This has been so fun. And yeah, it just feels like a big gift. So thank you. Thank you so much. I love you.
We love you too. Thanks for talking with us.
Love you, Michelle.
Thank you for joining us. To make a donation, head to eastlakecc.com/donate.